Dave Ziegler's Josh McDaniels press conference today on Night of the Shield. Welcome in, Nation, to another episode of Night of the Shield. I'm your host, Jason Smith, a.k.a. The Knight, and tonight we're going to be going over the press conference of Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels. Now, real quick, if you're new here, please hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you can be updated every time I drop another video. And if you've been here and rocking with me for a while, you know what to do. Smash that like button. Let's keep moving up that algorithm. All right, big disclaimer before we get started on this one. I'm not going to go through the whole presser. I'm going to cut out their introductory part just because I felt like it was, it was your typical, hey, this is who I am, this is what I represent, this is what I'm about, and I'm not exactly sure that, they used a ton, and I mean they used a ton of, hey, commitment to excellence, just win, baby. I felt that it was too much fluff for me, if I had to be honest. Now, granted, I'm keeping the same path. I'm rocking with these guys until I'm not. They haven't made any mistakes. They haven't done any wrong. This is kind of the whole cliche thing teams do every single time there's a new hire. They roll these people out. Hey, here they are, here we are. And they say all the right things. They make you feel all warm and fuzzy. I like getting into the stuff that really counts, right? And when they're asked questions, how they're going to respond. And I'm going to be honest before we start this too. I felt the media was really fair and safe with them. I don't think they pressed them hard enough. I think they were kind of, if I had to guess, just a little light on them, in my personal opinion. But where I wanted to start tonight, because this is the only part that I thought was quite genius, and true or not true, it's something that had to be said. If you're going to be bringing in two Patriots to this organization, which I still say is a smart move, and we'll get into it as the presser goes, this had to be addressed, and it was pretty much right out the gate. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into this.
Saturday, we met in the hallway as we were passing. It was before the interview process was going to start, and I said, hey, I introduced myself and everything, and he looked me in the eye and he said, there's one thing, it was a fumble. So Raider Nation, if you're worried, he's already come over to the dark side.
All right, guys.
That was so brilliant. I really felt that was a great way to start this process, to acknowledge the fact that the tuck rule existed, and yes, that it was a fumble. So right away, get in the good graces of the Raider Nation. Do not mess around with it. Just call it like it is. It was a fumble. I thought it was a great way to start the presser. Now let's go ahead and get into the real nuts and bolts and see what's going on here.
True story. We'll open it up for questions. We have microphones on either aisle. Please state your name and affiliation. Go ahead, Vinny.
Vinny Monsignor with Las Vegas Review-Journal. This is for Josh and Dave. You mentioned that you were patient, and there have been reports that over the years there have been overtures made, for you and to be head coaches elsewhere. What was it about this organization that made you say, okay, this is the one that I want to leave New England for?
I love this answer.
When you go through this process, like I said, I was very impressed with how exhaustive they were. Just in their evaluation of me and my fit and how I would fit into their vision. And then you come out and you spend time with them, you meet the people, you see that everything's done in a first-class manner. Their commitment to winning is easy to feel, to see. And to me, walking through this building and
not for the nation, it always ain't, right?
History and tradition of this organization and how much that impacts, the day-to-day here, it really hit me. This is one of those iconic places, and it's a historic organization that has unbelievable history and tradition.
Not lying there.
And it's in every hallway. And so I just, getting to know them, feeling their commitment, and understanding that really married up with what my vision would be for another opportunity. It was easy to make the choice.
I thought that was well answered, and we know our history, we know how iconic it is, and it really felt genuine as he said it. Like a lot of people who come up through football who've never been a part of the West Coast, the Oakland vibe, the Los Angeles vibe, and now the Las Vegas vibe, sometimes they don't truly understand the history, not just the history. History is easy to understand. You can look it up all over YouTube. But to really be a part of this fan base and embrace what this culture brings, and how the Raiders really become a part of your life, and how this organization has always embraced it. And I think that's one of the biggest difference. This organization, once a Raider, always a Raider attitude, bringing the alumni back, really representing what Al built here, and it continues on in the hallways. You feel it, even though they're in a brand new facility, brand new town, brand new state, you still get those vibes. And that has a lot to do with Al's son, Mark, and what he continues to try to build upon. And we're going to get into that as this presser goes, but as he tries to build upon it.
Hey everyone, it's Tashawn Reed from The Athletic. This is just an open question. When it comes to personnel and roster construction, what's sort of the vision for how the decision-making process will happen between whether it's McDaniels or Ziegler?
Just to clarify, in terms of how we're going to make decisions?
Yes, in terms of just like transactional, drafting, roster construction. How's that?
So key.
Sure. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, as the general manager and as the one leading the charge on the scouting side and personnel and college and pro, that direction will come from me in terms of the construction of the roster. Obviously, Josh and I are tied in many ways in our vision of how to build a team and our vision of what we want.
So key.
In terms of the players that we bring into the building is very connected. But at the end of the day, when it's time to make decisions on personnel, while we'll work together, those final decisions will be made by me.
Could you say it any better than that? Could you make it any more clear than that? This is exactly what I personally wanted. And when I first talked about bringing these two gentlemen in, I talked about consistency, continuity, camaraderie. These guys know each other. They both know they've been doing this for a long time together in the same organizations. This is not two guys that knew each other in college, went their separate ways, and now have an opportunity to come together. They've been working in the same building, learning the same philosophies, having conversations probably before and after work, and coming to this conclusion. And they're coming in, they know their roles, right? They're going to work together. And Mark does actually a really good job here in a few minutes, and we'll get into that too. But they're going to be coming in here, they're going to be working together. And then if there has to be that final decision, that final say, it's the GM. That's something that this organization has lacked in a very long time, and I'm excited that was clear and upfront right away.
Ed Graney, Review Journal. Mark, I'll give Vinny's question to you now. You talked about the process. Can you talk about when you came down to the decision of the two gentlemen you're sitting by, of what stood out to you that made this decision?
This is great.
Well, I'd been watching Josh for many years for certain reasons other than maybe good ones at times. The success of the Patriots and watching them over the years,
Been painful.
I've seen them do it with Tom Brady, of course, the greatest of all time.
Can't argue
but
that.
I also saw the development of Tom Brady, the greatest of all time.
Can't argue that.
And then I saw it with Matt Castle. I
Correct.
saw him be able to win with him and make Matt Castle the hottest free agent commodity in the market.
True.
And I saw him do it this year with a rookie quarterback. I've just always seen
True.
the Patriots as a team that not only adapts from week to week or half to half, but maybe even series to series. I just believe in Josh's ability to assess the situation and make the changes in real time. And that's always been something that's impressed me. On the side of Dave, with their personnel and everything, it's a lot of no names that they do it with, and every now and then,
True.
they'll bring in a big name free agent, but he fits a spot, and that kind of reminded me of the old Raiders in that way, that we used to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And I tease him because they took a player from us, a guy by the name of Randy Moss, and I told him he got Randy Moss, and he couldn't even win with him. And the funny part about that is they won 18 games, but they lost one. But I really just, again, in watching it and being around this sport for a long time and watching the excellence that was brought to the field by the Patriot organization, and knowing
Can't argue
that Josh
that.
was a huge part of that. And
Can't argue that either.
talking to people that are also part of the Patriot organization that I know in my network of people, I got the feeling that this was the right guy.
I thought this was a different part of the conversation where he says something, but we'll definitely get into that. But again, I mean, those are all facts. And these are one of the things that I know. I mean, Gruden mentioned it when he came here, right? He wanted to build something like the Patriots. Now, he wasn't doing it the Patriot way. He was doing it the John Gruden way. And quite honestly, it wasn't working out. And that's something that actually Mark Davis admits and to a certain degree that we'll go over here in just a little bit. But you cannot argue where they come from, where they learned, and how long they've been there, especially the head coach. McDaniels has been there a long time, and he's learned a lot, and he'll get into more of that too. So I don't want to get ahead of myself here. Let's go ahead and continue.
Josh, Hondo Carpenter with Sports Illustrated. Most coaches, when they take over a team, it's in disaster mode. You get a double-digit fifth seed in the AFC West.
Yep.
But you also get a top 5 quarterback. How appealing was it for you to
This was
come to
interesting.
an organization with a quarterback like Derek Carr?
Yeah, I mean, Derek's won a lot of games in this league, and we've competed against each other a number of times, and I have a lot of respect for him. He certainly did a good job this year leading their offense, and I spoke with him yesterday. We had a great conversation. Looking forward to actually getting to meet him and get to know him as a person, as a human being, and then getting to work, in terms of developing our offense this year into what it's going to be. But there's no question that we have the capacity and capability of winning with Derek here. We all know that, and I look forward to the challenge of trying to grow not only Derek, but everybody on the roster to try to reach our potential. I never feel like a player, is a finished product, and our job as coaches is to continue to identify places where we might be able to get better and work hard to try to improve. And I know he's completely on board with that. Again, we had a great conversation, and I look forward to our relationship.
I thought he answered that very well, just enough, right? But if I had to be honest, I personally was looking for a little bit more. I don't think necessarily we could say that he hasn't made a decision yet, but the fact that he says he's looking forward to working with them, he said that Carr is on the same page as far as like wanting to see what the system has to offer. I mean, if you're Derek Carr, you have to be excited about this guy's pedigree, his ability to adjust, like Mark said in the previous statement, on the fly. This guy does not wait till halftime to make adjustments. He'll make adjustments right now. And I'm excited for that. I'm excited for that for Carr. I'm excited for that for this complete offense. Waller, Renfro, whatever receiver, we'll have to talk about that later, that's going to be added to this football team. And even guys, they've been key to take no-name guys or guys that are not performing and make them performers, like Edwards, right? That's exciting to me. I'm sorry. Like these are some things I'm really excited about. He's a good talker. He's saying all the right things. I hope he can practice what he preaches.
This is Chris Matthews from KLAS TV here in Vegas. Can I just ask both of you, Dave and Josh, what are maybe a couple of the key principles? You mentioned you're tied in many ways. Maybe a couple of the key principles that you bring from New England to Las Vegas with yourselves?
Well, I would say some of the things that I hit on earlier when during my introduction are really some of the key principles in terms of, and I would say more like foundationally within the organization in terms of, the attention to detail, in terms of a high standard in everything that we do. And also, I'd say communication and collaboration and roster building together.
Gotta love that.
I think those are some key elements that are really important to our process. When it comes to players specifically, we always talk about it, and it really is important, and it's simple, but smart, tough, dependable, and players that love football. And obviously there's a lot of different elements that you can also keep on top of that. But at the very core, those are the things that we're going to look at. Those are the things that are important to us, and those are some really foundational pieces for us when we look at this, this organization and building it how we want it to look.
It's, I mean, Dave said it perfectly, and it's hard to have a tough, smart football team that's explosive, that plays well under pressure, unless you're committed in every avenue of those are the type of people we're going to bring in and put on the team. And so it requires discipline to do that, and that's our vision for how we feel best about trying to win. And you're going to have to. There's a lot of commitment across the board in our organization to being able to field a team that represents those qualities and those characteristics.
And I would just add, before we move on, that when you're building a team, it's not just about acquiring talent. It's about acquiring talent and putting talent in the right spots. But
So
it's
good.
also about building a roster from top to bottom that is competitive, that competes every day, that has depth. And those are also key elements that I think we've learned through our time in the league that really allows you to sustain and win during a long NFL season. And having the right people in the right spots, in the right roles, and we're very
So
role
good.
specific in how we look at things, are a couple other key elements to what we believe in and how we're going to build it.
Can you see why this guy was so sought after in the NFL? And now, granted, and like I said, take this all with a grain of salt. Right now, this is all feel good, right? I'm going to say everything I need to say, but this is truly the Patriot way, right? We're getting a small little look into what the Patriot way really is. And we've seen this. We've known this, right? They mastered the next man up philosophy. Belichick has always been really good about taking players and putting them in different roles because it fits what they're doing. And that's exactly what that man just said, right? It's not about just finding the right players. It's finding the right players to fit the right roles, to fit the right personality. Everything has to mesh. Everything has to be competitive. There's got to be multiple layers to this to sustain a season. They've been trained to not only think of the now, but think of the future, the present, all of it. That, I'm sorry, it excites me, at least to have that mindset. Now, again, I'm not banging the table. I'm rocking with them until I'm not. I told you, these are our dudes right now, right? We're going to rock with these guys. We're going to let them play out. Right now, this is fluff. This is words. But I think we're going to see some things be taking place in the offseason, and I'm really interested to see where they take this thing.
Levi Edwards, Raiders.com. This is kind of a two-parter. First, Coach McDaniels, you talked about how much you've evolved over time. If you could put a point on an aspect of your life, just on or off the field as a coach from your time in Denver, where would you say is probably the biggest thing that you've evolved?
This is deep.
Just personally, and also
I got a lot to say about this one.
Dave, how convenient is it to be able to work with a head coach as a general manager, someone that you are so familiar with building a team?
Yeah. When I went to Denver, I knew a little bit of football. I didn't really know people and how important that aspect of this process and maintaining the culture and building the team was. And I failed, and I didn't succeed at it. And so,
honest,
looking at that experience has been one of the best things in my life in terms of my overall growth as a person, as a coach. What do I need to do different? How do I need to handle my role if I have another opportunity and do better at it? And I feel like that's really an area that I've tried to grow in with our staff in New England.
Yep.
Our offensive staff working together, collaborating, supporting one another, impacting them, serving them, helping them grow as coaches, as players. With our guys, that we're coaching. So that's the biggest. I would say that's the biggest area for me, and I know how important it is as a head coach to be able to do that.
So humbly, man, and I'm going to get a little deep, little slightly philosophical, however you say it, philosophical, because this is what I do. This is a specialty of mine personally. I work with people. That's what I do at my job. One of the things I do at my job. I motivate, I educate, I inspire. You got to be able to meet the people where they're at. That's something he's openly admitting that he did not do. Not only is he admitting that he did not do that, he's admitting that he needs to work on that, and that's what he did, right? The first step to growth, okay? And this fits even this channel and what I'm doing right now. When I left in 2016, all right, I'm going to make this very clear. I left primarily because I needed to address myself first. I was living a lie. I needed to accept my blindness for what it was, so I then can move on to bigger and greater things. And I find myself in a situation today where I have the opportunity and the ability to pass that on to others, to help others find their way to be successful in their sight loss, right? And that's what this guy's doing. He's coming, he's admitting, hey, I wasn't ready. Not only was I not ready, I made a ton of mistakes. I've accepted those mistakes. I went back into a place where I know that they would pour the time and energy into me to make me not only a better person, but a better coach. And now I'm here to prove that. And to me, Raider Nation, that is one of the biggest moments out of this conference that I wanted to hear, right? I wanted to hear him be humbled. I wanted to hear him admit to his mistakes. And the extra caveat was how he explained himself, talked about how he just didn't know people. He didn't know players. He didn't know how to meet them where they're at and truly coach, because that's the biggest key component of coaching. And my hat goes off to you, my brother. I'm excited. I'm excited to see if you really truly could take the next step. And at this point in time, you know, I got your back on that right now. So now you're saying it. Now you got to go prove it.
This is Vic Tafer from The Athletic. Question for both Josh and Dave. In what ways did Bill Belichick shape you guys? What was the biggest impact he had as far as your guys' development?
Here we
to
go.
this point today.
I'll go.
I'll let you take that first.
Oh boy, there's a long list.
See?
Look, he's been. As I mentioned, I'm blessed and fortunate to have had the experiences that I have. I started in personnel, you know, back in 2001 when Laura made quite a bit more money than I was making, and
2001.
and just he
Personnel.
made you develop in every area as a professional in this environment, and gave us the opportunity to see the scouting side, gave us the opportunity to work on I had the opportunity to work on defense, you know, then
Wow.
flipped me over to the offensive side and had me, you know, coach the quarterback, and kind of I saw the game, you know, in a lot of different perspectives, and I was able to
Young, too.
You know, what I felt like was that's a really well-rounded approach as you're growing up in this game to have some understanding of what is the grading system, what does it mean, how do they attack us on offense when you're on defense, and then flipping it over to the offensive side and understanding that, and then, you know, tying it all together with situational football and game management, which is obviously a critical component to winning every game in the NFL. I mean, you lose a lot more games than you win in this league, and if you can do some of those things really well, obviously that's going to impact your opportunity to win. So there's so many that I couldn't name them all, but I mean,
Humbling.
you know, he gave me an opportunity to be well-rounded coming out of the organization, and I'm very grateful for that.
You know, I'd say for me, I could, you know, have a laundry list of things, but I would say, you know, the one thing that sticks out to me is that Bill taught me is Bill is a forward thinker. And it's not just about a decision in the moment. It's about how a decision can, you know, one decision can impact four different things. One decision can impact what we're going to do in 2022, in 2023, and just to really have an understanding of how decisions can impact different parts of the organization and can impact your team. And I think the other thing that you know, Bill it doesn't get talked about much, but and it goes along with the forward thinking piece is Bill is you know, really dedicated to evaluating every single thing that we do.
Attention to detail.
At every point of the year and looking at it critically, and then evolving and trying to figure out how are we going to get these things better, even if the end result was a Super Bowl, or even if the end result was a great trade or a great player acquisition, or, you know, whatever it may be. Every decision that we do here in all of our processes, as I mentioned, just to evaluate those things critically, what went well, what didn't go well, and how we can improve it. And I think that's critical to not staying stagnant and to, you know, always kind of making sure you're moving forward with the, you know, the best ideas and the best processes.
Again, I'm going to say these guys are definitely saying the right things. They're hitting on some really key points that are deeper than the words that you're hearing, right? It's the attention to detail. It's the methodical way Bill Belichick worked, right? And the way he teaches even. Look, as Raider fans, we look across the nation over there in New England, and all we see is tuck rule. All we see is 6 Super Bowl rings. All we see is this older guy in a hoodie come and just be just so serious all the time. The guy is a football dude. He doesn't try to impress and dress. He just comes out. He says what's on his mind. Okay, I'm out. I'm going back to work. You hear these guys. He's constantly thinking about the next move. Even if they won the Super Bowl, he's thinking about, okay, now I need to make sure that I'm moving forward constantly. And that is why the Patriots have been successful. We all know that they've been caught cheating on multiple occasions, but again, we it's only cheating if you get caught. And I remember when Tom got caught with the whole deflate gate and on all that stuff. A lot of quarterbacks came out and was admitting that they were doing the same thing, and he just got caught, right? And a lot of these guys just thought it was natural, hint, Carr, you might want to think about that. Maybe you can hold on to the ball a little bit. I don't know. I mean, he has a fumbling problem, right? That was kind of Brady's thing. So he didn't like how stiff it was. He wanted a better grip on the football in the cold. It made sense. It's wrong. He got caught. You know what I mean? But outside of all of that, that has been a dominant organization. You cannot lie. Yes, they're in with the league. Yes, they get favorable calls. And, I don't know. I can't explain it to you. I'm not a conspiracy theorist guy. I'm just not. But trust me, man, these guys come in here and they mean business. Now, if they could back up what they're preaching right now, for the first time, we're going to have a real structured balance from top to bottom. And that's what I'm personally excited about. I'd like to see how this works out for us.
Sam Gordon, Las Vegas Review-Journal, right here. Gentlemen, welcome to Vegas. Dave, question for you. Like Hondo mentioned, this was a team that went 10-7 last year and made the playoffs. When you assess the roster, how close do you feel like it is to contending with some of the teams we saw this past weekend? And are there any particular points of emphasis as you get ready for your first draft and free agency with the Raiders?
Yeah, I think, obviously the team did a good job, right? They got into the playoffs, and there's a lot of talented players on this team. And I think, Josh and I have talked about it. There's still a lot of, I've evaluated the team to a degree, to the detail that I would normally do. I'm not there yet. So I think to be fair to the team and to the guys onto the team, I think, there's still a self-scout and an evaluation period that I have to go through with our staff here, with Josh, to really understand how all the pieces and the parts fit together. And I think, once we go through that process and once we have that understanding, we'll have a much better idea of what our plan of attack is going to be going forward. Not that I'm going to announce that to the world, but we'll have that plan and we'll have that a concrete idea of what that is. And I think, that's still going to take some time.
And honestly, I guess it's a question that needed to be asked, but let's face it. They know the roster to a certain degree. They definitely know some of the names. They know Crosby, right? They know Igakwe, right? They know, Renfro's, the Wallers, the Carrs, the Jacobs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They know what they have on this football team, but they really want to actually get in, break down some film, talk to other personnel, really find out not only what they deeply have, but how it fits their vision, because that is key. Because offensively, I don't think it matters. I think you're going to see a lot of returning pieces that he's just going to come in and teach like he does. He's going to be innovative, and I love that about McDaniels. Now, as far as Ziegler goes, he's saying, right, like, and they talk about it here towards the end too. We got about 10 more minutes in this video to break down, so bear with me, y'all. I really appreciate you. If you're still here rocking with me, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, the notification bell, so we can continue to move up the algorithm. And I appreciate you guys and love you guys, man. All right, but he's really gonna make decisions, especially on defense. So he's just really trying to get to understand the roster, and I think that's a fair assessment.
The question for Dave. Obviously, you have a scouting background, but you've worked a variety of jobs, between your time with the Broncos and the Patriots. What do you think you learned from wearing all those different hats, and how do you think that can help you now that you're stepping into this GM role?
Yeah, well, it's been a great experience in just terms of being well-rounded, and I would say even beyond football. Me and Mark talked about it. I was a high school teacher, at one time, and I was
So
a high
good.
school guidance counselor at one time. And I'd say all those experiences in terms of how to deal with different people, how to relate to different people, how to communicate at a high level, how to show empathy, how to problem solve. Like, I learned a lot of those lessons outside of football, and that have been really valuable to me. And then inside of football, starting with my time in Denver, as a pro scout, as a college scout, as a scouting assistant, picking people up from the airport, to putting
Grinded.
cards on the board. In my time in New England, again on the college side and the pro side, and this year, I would say this past year, really being much more hands-on on a lot of aspects of the organization,
Yep.
being involved more on some of the contractual things that are involved in the organization, the salary cap and those types of things. So I just think, like, the more exposure you have, right, in any line of work, the more knowledge you have, and the more knowledge that you have, the better that you can perform your job. And so, yeah, all of those experiences have allowed me I would say, to feel confident in my ability to run the scouting department, and I'll still have things to learn, and I'll learn things from the people that are here in this organization, and ideas that they have and processes that they have that maybe are better than some of the ideas that I have myself. And so that's how I would answer those questions. It's been, I think it's been a unique ride for me to get to this point, but I think it all kind of came together to allow me to have some of the success that I've had.
And I thought that was well said. Look, out of both these guys, I think Dave Ziegler has the most to prove. I believe that, his track record is a lot smaller. We already know what we're getting in McDaniels. He's a prolific play caller. He likes to adjust on the fly. We know that he develops quarterbacks. He's really good at setting up offense and planning for the games. We know what we're getting there. On the whole personnel department, this is his real first opportunity. Everything's going to be his decision. He's going to be calling the shots moving forward. But I really like the beginning of that statement where he talks about being a teacher, where he talks about being a high school counselor, and just really having that high quality of developing and talking to people, being a good communicator. Big part of his job is to make sure that he communicates with his whole staff, right? From the coaching, from the scouts to the players. He's got to be able to build relationships. So the fact that he was a teacher, a high school counselor, he's been in that system. He's actually been working with players. He's got a good reputation. I think he's on the right track. This is his first opportunity. This is why I say sometimes we just got to sit back. We got to take a deep breath. We can't set our expectations too high, because when expectations don't meet reality, it could get really, really ugly quick. So, we got to stay even keel and just give these guys an opportunity to operate together.
Dave, along the lines of evaluation and assessing the roster, Derek Carr has said that he would like to retire as a Raider. He wants to be here a long time. He's got one more year left on his contract. Is that a box that you
Total
feel
setup
needs to
question.
get checked off ASAP, or does it go into next year? Or, what are your thought process on that?
Yeah, I think, like, and I know Josh talked to Derek. I had a great conversation with Derek myself yesterday, and I think the one thing that we all understand is there's going to be a process of us learning Derek learning us, and fitting all those pieces together. And I think that's going to be step one, is building the relationship, understanding what Derek does well, Derek understanding what Josh and the offensive staff is trying to build. And I think as that collaboration goes, then you kind of see how everything fits together. And I think until you see how everything, you have to see how everything fits together and kind of work from that point. And we're just really excited to have Derek here and to get to know him and get to know his strengths and get to work with him in our system.
Hey there, Cassie Soto with the Las Vegas.
All right, that one was a little loaded, right? And I already know that this just both their comments, McDaniels earlier and Ziegler's right now, like, this is going to be twisted, right? This is going to be twisted because, and this is where I said it would have been nice to get a higher vote of confidence for Derek Carr, but you got to remember, this is the time of year where there's a lot of decisions are being made. They are evaluating the roster, but there's a lot of key words that Derek is their guy right now until he's not. And they're going to evaluate, but they're really excited. And I truly believe that Derek will be here. I don't think you could just walk away on that. I mean, some deal's going to have to come across the table that makes you say, wow, this is the direction I'm going to go. But until that happens, so you're going to hear a lot of people talking about that part of this interview, but trust me, Derek will be here.
Vegas Review Journal. This one is for Mark. How important was it for you to find a duo who had previously worked together, had experience of how each other operate at the beginning of this search?
That's a good question. When I first came in, the first hire
I love this.
was Reggie McKenzie as the general manager of the Raiders. And it was important to me because
he was
really
told.
hadn't had a general manager since my father had been running the team. And
True statement.
I gave Reggie the ability to bring in his own head coach, which was the ability to have some type of working relationship. And that didn't work out so well at that time. I think it was because they were two young guys that were working together, but they really didn't have the experience to run a football team. Then we come to the next iteration was John and Mike Mayock. And they built the roster that's here today, but it was a rocky road. And
did you hear that?
So I felt in this time we were going to do it a little bit differently and try to find a teammate. And therefore, in every interview that we did with a head coach, we asked him who he would think of as a general manager or general managers. And on the other side of the coin, we asked that to every general manager as well. Who would you think of as a head coach? And it was such an expanding learning process, hearing about all those things, but we felt that it was really important for them to have synergy. And I couldn't have found a better pair of people working together from John Carroll University than these two gentlemen.
If I hear him say John Carroll University one more time, you'd have to listen to the beginning to understand all that. But neither here nor there. Look, he said it like I've been saying it for a long time. He left out the part that Reggie was kind of chosen for him, but that's neither here nor there, right? He brought in Reggie McKenzie. He admitted, his dad didn't have a system built, right? Reggie came in to do that. That just didn't work. He didn't throw in the caveat of Jack Del Rio in the middle. That's where he really blew it up because Davis went out and chose Jack Del Rio. Then I've said this just recently. I've gone over this, but he's repeating that. Let's just forget about it. You guys heard me talk about that already. The key thing there, though, is he said that both John and Mike had a rocky go at it. It wasn't easy, which kind of confirms some reports that we would hear every offseason that they weren't seeing eye to eye. So, again, Mike didn't have some of the power that we think he did, especially when it comes to the personnel. And I would have to believe it was probably in the first rounds. That's just my thought process. And the way that this business works, whether or not it comes out in the future in some interview or what have you, Mike didn't make those calls. Now, does that mean that we should have kept Mike? Nah. I mean, I said it. I liked Mike, man. I mean, I think he's a good guy on TV. I love his analysis, but there's so much more as you're hearing Dave speak. All these things that Dave is talking about, all the years that he was grinding and learning and moving up the system and learning and constantly trying to gather information. These are all the things that Mike Mayock just didn't have. He didn't have. Mark could bring him in and be like, Mike, what's up? I'm going to keep you. And he's going to be like, no, man, it's just like Rich, right? Rich is great. But Rich, I heard Rich Bisaccia is getting an interview possibly or an interview with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think that's fantastic. I mean, he's a great leader. He's a great person. He's a great father figure. He's someone you want in your locker room to keep people together and motivated and playing as one. I'm totally down for that. But as a head coach, you just don't know what you're getting. And we're not in a position in Vegas to play that card right now or take that gamble, no pun intended, right? They made the right move. They brought in a pure guy that's been training for this position. He's a personnel department guy. He can do it all, negotiate contracts, caps, you name it. He's running the show. And then we got a head coach that gets exactly what he's doing, and they're on the same page. I'll shut up now.
We have time for just a few more guys. We'll go Adam, Hondo, and then Paul.
Yeah, Adam Hill, Las Vegas Review Journal. Along those same lines for both Dave and Josh, how important was it for you guys to find a place where you could work together, kind of put your stamp on a franchise and kind of put that vision into place of how you guys have kind of seen this over the years?
I think it's I think it's an important aspect of the team building process. It's not it's not something that has to be, a long-term relationship. We've seen that work in the NFL where it hasn't been, but to me, it was important for me to have that, as somebody, have that person be somebody that I was familiar with, that understands, me as a person, as a coach, and just fortunate that this opportunity is presented to us. I mean, we don't have to teach one another the language, the scouting system, the things we're looking for in a player, the qualities and traits that we covet. Those are we already understand those. And so I think, albeit not necessarily a prerequisite, I think it's a huge plus for us and for our organization that we have that opportunity to kind of hit the ground running.
Yeah, I think that, I would say the unique thing is it important? Like Josh said, I don't think it's a prerequisite, but there are some advantages to it. And I think, Josh and I's relationship goes back a long time, and our relationship has always been built on honesty and respect, and the ability to be each other's biggest teammate, and the ability to be each other's critic too, and to always come back to a place of respect, and always come back to a place where we're on the same page. And I think that's been the real beauty of our relationship as we've developed and as we've kind of advanced in our respective positions in the league.
There's a lot of good stuff there. They're saying it's not a prerequisite, and that is a fact. I mean, when you look around the league, not too many head coaches that come in under GMs have that type of relationship that these gentlemen have. Like, this isn't something that normally doesn't happen, and I think that's why I'm so intrigued with this hire. I'm so intrigued to see where they go, because this is kind of unprecedented in a lot of ways. I mean, I'm sure it's happened in the past. There's been, coaches. We see it a lot when head coaches come in. You'll see McDaniels go get some familiar faces for him, right? Some familiar personalities that he's used to working with. That part of it is common. But from a general manager and a head coach standpoint, it's such a thin line they walk sometimes, and for these guys to come in together on the same page, they date all the way back to college, man. There's so much history. There's so much respect. I hope this doesn't ruin their friendship, for crying out loud. But, I mean, right now, being on the same page, having an opportunity with a roster that's already, there's some key pieces here, right? It may not be perfect in as far as what they plan to do with it, but there are some very solid key foundational pieces here. They're on the same page. They're coming from, not only are they friends and they're working together, they've been trained under the same umbrella, which means they're going to take things that they learned, add their personality to it, together, and grow something totally different. And I really, really, really hope it works, because it's something that we as Raider fans have been waiting a long, long time for.
Josh, for you, please, is it your anticipation that you'll run a 4-3, a 3-4 on defense? What is it that you're comfortable with as the head coach?
Most of it, it's funny, most of it today is actually built out of the nickel anyway. We talk a lot about 4-3, 3-4. 85% of the game is now sub defense, and so your decision making process might be a little different than it was 15 years ago when you were playing a lot more base defense. This team was built in the 4-3 mold. We'll make those considerations and determine how we want to go forward here.
Nice.
As we kind of build the staff and move along with the team. But I think right now it's built in that mode. But, like I said, most of these games you're playing a 4-man line and nickel defense anyway. And so that's almost become your base. And so the vision for us is going to need to be, what are our 5? There's 5 starting defensive backs now. And there's 2 linebackers and so on and so forth. So, we'll do the due diligence as we hire our staff, and then evaluate our team and decide what's best as we move forward.
Mark, Paul Gutierrez here.
So good, right? I really, really like that answer. I mean, basically he said, what they've been saying through this whole process, this whole conference right now. They're basically saying we're going to evaluate this football team. We're going to adapt and do what's best for these players, put these players in position to succeed. He said this team is already built from a 4-3 standpoint, but we all understand that nickel pretty much is the base, especially with all these hybrid tight ends and all these great slot receivers and what have you. You got to have that extra corner in there a lot. We'll see what they do with the safeties. There's a lot of things they can mix up. So they're going to continue to evaluate this team. I think that's the next step for us to look for as to what kind of defensive personality they bring in here. Is that person going to be able to be as innovative and as adaptive as these guys are claiming to be and come in here and say, you know what, this is what we got. Let's not rock the boat. Let's rock with what we got, because they got this defense. That's the one thing it has. Even though that I felt like it didn't take a lot of growth moving up, it stayed consistent, which was good enough. I was happy at times. I didn't like the style. I didn't like the prevent. We know we're not going to get that, right? I guarantee you we're not going to be playing a lot of this, prevent style, bend, don't break. It's going to be more aggressive, but they're going to probably keep that 4-3. If I was them, I would take a hard look at that anyway. As these guys evaluate the talent, if they feel they could switch it up and they can do some different things with it, I think that's what you'll see. I think around the league, that's what you see anyway. Being able to adjust, being able to do multiple things, give multiple looks, and stay unpredictable, right? And kind of be able to attack from all points of the field. So, again, I mean, could you had a better interview where somebody says all the right things? I personally don't think so.
Here from ESPN, in the decade plus since you've been running things, you've overseen a deconstruction, then the reconstruction. How would you describe what this is right now? Just totally going outside of the box, and like you mentioned earlier, finding the synergy, but
another loaded
going
question.
outside of the box as well.
Well, I think that John and Mike had built a foundation to build upon, and I think that's what we're doing now. And I think moving forward, that's what these two are going to be building upon, that foundation. We've got some great players in this organization right now. I believe there's a great culture in this organization right now, which is what they will find. They haven't seen that as much yet because they haven't seen all the players together, but that's something that Rich had built over the last 6 months, is a fantastic culture in this building. And I think that now we're just moving to the next level. And that it's not a rebuild, it's not a reload, it's just taking this to the next level and getting to that Super Bowl and winning some championships.
And that's pretty much where I'm going to end it right there. I think it's over anyway. Just to touch on what he said, I love the fact that he addressed Rich in this and said that the culture that Rich built, because, a lot of credit goes to Rich, and I'll even say Gus, because there was a lot of talk about Gus Bradley in the offseason heading into training camp and his style and his ability to relate to his players. So kudos to Gus Bradley as well. But reload, this is what's expected. It's pretty much what I said in the last piece. They're going to evaluate what they have. They'll adjust it appropriately. They'll make the adjustments where they can, and they'll move forward. But rebuild, reload, it doesn't matter what words you put on it. At this point, this is a new era of Raider football. And I honestly think that the process in which Mark Davis and his team conducted themselves and made really smart decisions. These are not foolproof decisions, nothing. And I think that's the problem as fans, right? I'm just going to be real quick before we jump out of here. The problem with us as fans is we expect perfection. There's no such thing. There's going to be mistakes made. There's going to be things happen that makes us scratch our head. But you have to look at the overall production of everything they do in the course of a period of time. The less time that you give somebody to try to develop something, the harder it is for them to develop it, to be quite honest. And, McDaniels came in here very humbled. He admitted and was very open about his mistakes that he made in Denver. That's a perfect example. But, I mean, his mistakes it was so obvious, so glaring that he wasn't a people person, that he was way over his head. It only lasted 2 years. I don't think we're going to get that here. And as long as Mark Davis shows just enough patience for them to adjust, and we got all off season to go over this. I'm so excited to be back. I'm so excited to kind of share my thoughts and my opinions that I'm excited to watch this down and break it down week by week, day by day, whatever it takes. I'm here for the ride, and I'm excited. And I want to thank everybody who's been tuning in and watching and liking the videos. Continue to do so. Smash that like button right now, matter of fact. And if you're new here, again, don't forget, smash that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell so you can be updated every time I drop a video. hey, you guys want to help me out? Spread the word. Spread the word about this channel. Spread the word that the Knight's back. I have different takes sometimes. Sometimes it's, you know, you're going to find a lot of regurgitation. A lot of it's about delivery. I'm a little different. I'm a little old school. It's just what I am. But you know what? I'm still a Raider fan through and through. I appreciate every single one of you guys. I'm going to jump out of here. It's been probably one of my longest videos in a while. Thanks for being patient. I hope you made it all the way through. And until next time, y'all stay Raider strong. Night out.